Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Sara Rands. She's a psychotherapist and patient advocate. Today's Kevin MD article is Early Onset Breast Cancer, a Survivor's Story. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Kevin.
All right, let's start by briefly sharing your story, and then we'll jump right into your Kevin MD article for those who didn't get a chance to read it.
Sure. So 20 years ago, I got this horrible news out of the blue. I had found a lump. I wasn't worried about the lump. I'd had some benign ones before. And so I was only 32 years old. I figured I had nothing to worry about, but then got the phone call that changed everything. My children were 7, 5, and 3, and it it just took over all of life for a while. Went through all the treatment, the surgery, the chemo, the radiation, the hormone things, the reconstruction. And I was really surprised to learn. So after all of that aggressive treatment, had the courage to ask my oncologist what my numbers were. And she asked if I wanted to know. And I had a 50% chance of a recurrence, which I was really confused about. I thought I had done all this aggressive treatment to prevent this, and that I was young, but I was really surprised to learn that young cancer is more aggressive, and I wish, and that's part of the purpose of my article here, is to advocate for screening methods for young women, because right now they're really overlooked.
Mm.
And while young breast cancer is uncommon, it's not all that rare, right?
Yeah.
It happens to about 1 in 200 women in their 30s, and so wanting to shine a light on this, that to help shift research priorities is my hope.
So tell us, Sara, before we talk about your article, how are you doing today?
Mhm. Oh, I just passed my 20th anniversary of the diagnosis, and life is beautiful. I'm able to, very healthy, and got the chance to raise my kids, which was the one thing I was hoping for most of all. That's this anniversary, more than any of them, has really been impactful and touching to me, because I got what I hoped for most of all. As I was taking my walks during treatment, I would dream about like what I wanted most of all, and that was like to be looking in the rearview mirror here at having had the chance to raise my kids to adulthood. And I got that, right? I just feel so grateful and lucky. Mhm.
So, as you did your research, of course, with breast cancer screening guidelines, what are they
Mhm.
currently listed at? What age are women typically screened for breast cancer?
So it's over the past, I don't know how many years, it's gone back and forth, I think, between 40 and 50. And right
Hmm.
now they're recommending mammograms at 40, so at the younger side of things. But as I understand it, the problem is that mammograms don't do a good job of detecting, or at least at a screening level, breast cancer in denser young breasts. And so as a result, we don't screen younger women. My hope would be, if mammograms aren't it, maybe something else is, right? Maybe I think that's why young women aren't being screened, is just that our current technology doesn't do a good job of it. So like, why not find, maybe there's a new way, right? And
Hmm.
that's, I guess, the conversation I hope to have, right? And maybe there is research going on and I don't know about it.
And when you talk to healthcare professionals and when you talk to your oncologist about your story about being
Mhm,
diagnosed with breast cancer in their 30s, so what's
mhm.
their responses in terms of their thoughts about the current screening guidelines?
Um, I I've been fortunate that I haven't had to go to my oncologist. I've been healthy. As I read the numbers, this happens to about 1 in 200 women in their 30s. Uncommon, but not what I would call rare, right? I see these
Yeah.
stories in the obituaries, in my local neighborhood, every time I log down to my survive internet support forums, and it seems to be like the second or third leading cause of death for women in their 30s. But yet there's no. And so I thought, okay, well, what about family history? I didn't have a family history, but it turned
Hmm.
out that was not uncommon. That's the way it is for 80% of women under 40 that are diagnosed. They find their cancer themselves. And so there's this sense of not that. My hope would be that 50 years after Susan G. Komen died at 36, that we would have found something that could have saved her, right? But I don't, we still don't have an early detection, right, mechanism.
In these patient support forums,
Hmm.
where a lot of women are being diagnosed with breast cancer at an earlier age,
Hmm.
are they all pushing for an earlier start to screening when it comes to breast cancer, or are they looking for better modalities?
Better modality. Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think most people are like just in the thick of their own story and maybe not zooming out to the bigger picture. And that would be my hope, is that we have some way of finding this a little earlier so people aren't as late diagnosed. I had my spread to stage 3C and had, I think, about 14 positive lymph nodes. And so I feel very fortunate that I've been able to meet this milestone of still being here 20 years later.
So, as you think back to your journey, you've obviously had many interactions with the healthcare team. So, I
Mhm.
like to ask patients who've gone through such a journey, what are some of the things that the healthcare team did well, and what are some of the things that the healthcare team you thought could improve on? Just as physicians, it's important to hear from the perspective of a patient going through a cancer journey.
Sure, sure. I felt very fortunate in my treatment team. They really looked at me as a human being and supported not just the medical stuff, which was excellent. I got excellent medical care from the oncology side of things, but also saw me as a human being and as a unique person. And of course, if you had to choose one, I would hope for the good medical care. But it was lovely to get both and that human to human encouragement during such a difficult time. Especially, I feel like from the chemo nurses, sometimes the radiation techs were I think they had to be a little more technically oriented, and so it seemed like some of the human skills were a little bit less there. My hope of what things could improve, at least for me, was some of the communication about reconstruction,
Mm.
that I wasn't informed about the risks of some of the reconstruction, and I kind of got pushed into things I didn't want. I wish that we had some way of like having counselors help people look at all of their options for their specific diagnosis and help them compare things like, aesthetic flat closure, prostheses. These were things I didn't know about as other options that were less risky.
Has anything changed in the years since you had your cancer journey? So, you mentioned it's been about 10, 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. I'm sure there have, right? But not some of these core things that would really move the needle, I feel like, is like early detection mechanisms. And I'm not sure. So and then on reconstruction, some of the core things like reconstruction can do a lot of things like aesthetically in a best case scenario, which was not what I got, but it doesn't replace the function, right? Or sensation or things like that. And there might be rare cases where that we are able to do that maybe on the cutting edge, but I think that's still not the typical case.
So, you were in your 30s having
Hmm.
this very severe cancer diagnosis. You had
Hmm.
three young children at the time.
Right.
Take us a little bit back into that emotional mindset that you had, and what were some of the things that were going through your mind during those years? Because it must have been incredibly difficult, both emotionally and medically for you.
Oh, absolutely. No, my 3-year-old's, yeah, one of her first memories was the day that my hair started falling out. I happened to be near a toilet and put some of my hair, disposed of it through the toilet, which I don't recommend for the plumbing. But anyway, she later she was saying, no, I was joking about, oh well, should I comb my hair now as I'm combing her little
Hmm.
hair? And no, you can't. No, you don't have no hair. You put your hair in your potty and you flushed it, right? So this was one of her first memories of me, and my 5-year-old was right about this height, and he would come in to hug me, and like these expanders were rock hard, and so he'd like hit his head on my body. And my 7-year-old wrote me this get well soon card that said do not did, because she didn't know how to spell die. and
Hmm. Hmm.
uh and so like just there's this, I was homeschooling my children at the time, and so we had to like totally pivot our family way of life and bring in this army of support people. My mom came up to help caretake these young children, so I feel very fortunate in having all the support that I did. But it just really turned our world upside down. And then as I was looking, my one big hope was to be able to be the one to raise them. And but that, like, the odds of that were a lot different than they were before the diagnosis. And so I would take these walks and I would just dream of it, just how long it would take, right?
Mhm.
How long it would take for me to be able to get that goal. And I just feel so lucky to be able to have gotten that, right? But my hope is that like that shouldn't be just luck, right? I would hope that we would have systems that would help support that. And I would like dream of like I would like make these deals with God, right? If I get to the age where I am now, right, where that I wouldn't complain
Yeah.
because it just is such a different thing, right? If I death at age 52, that is also tragic. I would, I love my life. My people would miss me, but at 32 it was just such a fundamentally different thing. It would have caused this catastrophic impact to this intergenerational trauma. And right now the systems are built to support people my age, right, and not this other case where the impact is so much greater.
So when you say that the systems aren't built to support those who are in early age and the impact's greater, what more would you like to see done?
I would like to see some sort of screening mechanism, whether, and if mammograms don't do that well, they say that the dense breast tissue is white on the mammogram, and so is the cancer. It's like finding a polar bear in a snowstorm, I've heard it described as. And so if that's not the one, then maybe there are other methods, right? And I have no idea what, but that would be the conversation I would hope to have, just so we could bring the screening there to be effective screening methods for younger women.
Now, if you were hypothetically in a room with those who set the policy guidelines,
Mhm.
what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say that even though breast cancer in your 30s and younger is uncommon among all of cancers, it's still not what I would call uncommon, right? A one in 200. That's like, I'm not sure how. It's about 3,000 people in my high school graduating class,
Mhm.
right? So that's a couple dozen. I'm not doing my math right. Anyway, and I would say that because of the impact being so much greater and so much more life years at stake, life years matter. And that my hope would be that we would have screening guidelines that would extend to younger women.
And you mentioned in your patient support forums, a lot of women are going through that cancer journey. You've already gone through that journey. And
Mhm.
what kind of advice can you share with these women who've received that unfortunate diagnosis at such an early age?
Mm. Oh, yeah, getting through the treatment is difficult, but I'm really glad I was able to do it. What I was surprised about is that how the most difficult part for me of that journey was um, grappling with that number
Yeah.
afterwards, grappling with that 50% number. That was after the parties were done, after I rang the bell, after I had the support of the medical people, but then I was left to be at home all by myself with that
Mm.
scary number. And that's like not with the medical system. That's more of a psychological kind of impact support. But I was really surprised that that was really the most difficult part for me. There's something energizing about a fight,
Yeah.
right? And gathering your people, but then going home with that different lifespan was difficult for me to wrap my head around. I dealt with that personally by trying to conceptualize it with what I can control and what I couldn't control. So I like, okay, I can control like what I do today. And so I'm living today. So if I got the bad news, that I would be satisfied and happy with the work was doing at the same time trying to build, the hope of the life that I do get to live now, that luckily I got the plan A.
As a psychotherapist,
Mhm.
you certainly have that background in terms of framing that situation in that particular way.
Right, right. That experience actually kind of led to the psychotherapy. This has been a late in life career transition, and so my hope is to be able to provide some of this to other cancer survivors as well as just people living life. Right, we all grapple with our mortality as we get older. Right, I just got it a little younger than most.
We're talking to Sara Rands. She's a psychotherapist and patient advocate. Today's Kevin MD article is Early Onset Breast Cancer, a Survivor's Story. Sara, let's end with some take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Yeah, my So I wanted to share this article to kind of show this blind spot that when I was diagnosed at 32, I was outside of the screening system entirely. I had to find the cancer myself, and I just realized that my case wasn't all that uncommon. So I kind of think of there's this metaphor of the drunk man that's looking for his keys under the street lamp when he lost them at home. I feel like we're looking for a cancer where we know how to find it and not where it actually is, or where the impact is on people's lives. And so I wanted to share my story to encourage research priorities to shift to the ones with the higher stakes and the more aggressive tumors and the longer survivorship. So it doesn't have to be just luck that I get to be here, right? That more young women can get the fortunate case that I've had.
Sara, thank you so much for sharing your story time and insight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin.